Good afternoon and welcome. Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to our meeting of January the 21st, and I apologize for the cancellation last week. I think a lot of us were traveling. What can I say? I don't know. It happens occasionally. But anyway, I think we have a quorum.
Yes, we have a quorum. Yes,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am? Oh,
I'm saying hi to Steve.
okay. Then if you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Steve?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Jennifer, let's get started.
Okay, so at this time, we do move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of items number 4 through 8. Were there any items on the consent agenda that the board members would like to pull for additional discussion?
Anything we want to pull? No, I think we're good.
Okay, may we have a motion to approve?
We've got a motion.
A second?
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. We now move to our regular agenda. Agenda item number 9, receive and take appropriate action on the CEO report for the El Paso County Hospital District doing business as a University Medical Center of El Paso. Mr. R. Jacob Cintron, President and CEO.
Good afternoon. We'll get started I guess right after the holidays. We started off sort of busy. On our first slide here, we show how we presented to the El Paso County Hospital District financial audit from BKD to the El Paso County Commissioners. Good information, good comments. Certainly we talk about the percentage our tax revenue comprises of our total revenue and how it's so much lower than the other safety net hospital systems in the state. And, the things we're doing, certainly we observe that our growth continues, our financial position continues to get better year over year. And, some of the things we're looking at in terms of trying to accelerate that. Additionally, we have our new emergency departments set to open in February. We had originally planned them in January and had to take care of a couple of things and, finalize some certification on our medical gases. So given that and the fact that the first ribbon cutting was scheduled on a Friday, that they forecast rain and winds and dropping temperatures, we thought it was best to move it to February. The ribbon cuttings right now are slated for the Northeast freestanding ED on February 4th, for the East Side freestanding ED on February 11th, and calendar reminders have been sent out. The Northeast ED is located behind the UMC Texas Tech Clinic off of Kenworthy, and it is facing on Cohen Street, facing where the old former Cohen Stadium used to be. And the East Side ED is located on the south end, connected to the East Side Clinic on Joe Battle. Our long-anticipated arrival of Ms. Estela Casas to head as Executive Director for our UMC and El Paso Children's Foundation is soon upon us, January 27th. Next week, she'll be starting with us. She's already been to the foundation, has already met with the staff, already active and involved with the gala preparation for the Children's Hospital. As you know, she's a well-known personality, and in her departure, even during her last few weeks there, spoke very highly of the foundations and really her repurposing after her experience in fighting cancer twice in her lifetime, and how that really wanted her to refocus in things that were important to her, and in particular, foundation opportunities to help those in need, and in particular those that are cancer survivors. So we're really fortunate to have her coming on board. She brings a lot of fresh ideas, has already met with me, and has already started talking about some things that we could do to really enhance the services of our foundation to our community. Additionally, we had, for the second time since the tragic mass shooting in El Paso at the Walmart on August 3rd, Dr. Tyrock, who's chair of our surgery at Texas Tech Health Sciences Center in El Paso and is also the trauma medical director at UMC. He was asked to share his insight with the members of the Texas legislature. This was a panel created by the House members. And on January 9th, he spoke with the House Select Committee on Mass Violence Prevention and Community Safety during a public hearing at UTEP. He was representing or working as an appointee to the governor's EMS and Trauma Advisory Council. Along with his public testimony, we submitted written testimony for the record regarding the events of the mass shooting and our position. Additionally, later in February, mid-February, the CEO and president at Medical Center Health System of Odessa, Russell Tippin, and myself were invited by the Texas Hospital Association to speak to its members regarding the mass shootings and what our experiences were and what are the lessons learned. We'll be presenting at the February THA conference on emergency preparedness and disaster response for mass casualty events. Additionally, year-end, we had a retreat for our care leaders in December. We spoke to them. We had leadership from both UMC and El Paso Children's Hospital as a 2019 CARES Leaders event in December. It featured insight on better leadership practices and trying to continue to invest in the leadership we have in terms of additional education in a number of different areas. And I think the highlight for us was our special guest speaker, Dave Carey, who has a book published regarding his experience in Vietnam. He is a Vietnam War prisoner of war, held in captivity. He was a pilot. And it talks about how under the most adverse conditions, including the torturing and the beatings, how the prisoners kept a positive attitude and some of the unique ways they encouraged one another and how they communicated with one another. He had spoken at the Quality Texas Foundation meeting and was really inspirational to our leadership in terms of how to face adversity successfully. We'll now go on to our final segment. This is the UMC minutes that our associates get to see, and we wanted to show it to you as well. Just as a side note, regarding baby Nathan, born on January 1st, he was a few hours late, but apparently he had run out of womb, and so he needed to enter the world that he's in today. Just a little joke. Anyway, if there's no questions, that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments for Jacob? Thank you, Jacob.
May we have a motion to accept the CEO report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Holguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The CEO report has been accepted. We now move to agenda item 10, receive and take appropriate action on the El Paso Children's Hospital quarterly report. Ms. Cindy Stout, CEO, El Paso Children's Hospital.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to make sure that we put in the minutes that that's the worst joke that I've ever heard. It is so bad. Try harder next time, Jacob.
Actually, I read it on a T-shirt for a little newborn. That's where I got the joke.
Well, I'm pleased to report to you all the first quarter of this fiscal year, a number of different changes that continue to occur at El Paso Children's Hospital. We welcome Dr. Roberto Canales as our Chief Clinical Officer. He joins our administrative team. His goal is to work side by side, one-on-one with the staff members to go ahead and to continue to improve the quality of care and to improve the competency level of our staff members, especially as we get ready to really pull together some robust programs that will help us to decrease the number of children continuing to leave the community. When we look at the volume statistics for the first quarter, you can see that we've had some really good growth there. Admissions alone saw almost a 13% over budget, 21% over prior year. When you look at the average length of stay, you'll see that the teams worked very hard to continue to improve that. That came down to a 5.19, seeing significant percent difference. The surgeries and the endoscopy cases, you'll see that there was some decline there. However, I'm happy to report that in January they have picked back up, like with a great lion's roar, and so we'll present that information to you all in the forthcoming months. Our Left Without Being Seen, you all have heard us talk about this. This is ensuring that all of the children who arrive at the emergency department are able to be seen by a provider within 10 minutes. That is our goal, and the team's done a phenomenal job. We're sitting right now at 11 minutes. Consequently, that's really helped us to decrease what we call our Left Without Being Seen. So these are patients that specifically have not been seen by a provider. We were down for the first quarter to 30, so that's huge improvements from prior year. Our emergency department visits continue to grow there. You can see that as compared with prior year, that's close to a 14% difference and almost a 13% for what we budgeted. And outpatient visits, you'll see as well there that, again, 5% better than last year and running at about a 2.6% better than what we budgeted for. Some of the things that we're working on to keep you abreast of which direction we're going in is we're really working now to ensure that we have a robust process for recruitment and retention of individuals and that we're investing in our future healthcare professionals. We started a new collaborative program with Texas Tech specific for perioperative services, again, making sure that we really have the well-trained, well-educated staff members, particularly for our OR services as we continue to grow. We've also revamped our new resident onboarding education, and we did that specifically because we want to ensure that the providers that are coming out into the community, that they have everything that they need in order to be successful with patient care. So we did that in collaboration with Texas Tech. And our EPCH Scholars Program, that's taking our next level of leaders, whether it's charge nurses or supervisors, and we take them off-site on a monthly basis, and we give them leadership training as well as skills training. We conduct those over with UTEP. One of our huge goals is to really ensure that we're focusing on quality and patient safety. In fact, we tell the team this is our #1 priority. And so you can see that something as simple as hand hygiene has been found to have been the #1 way to prevent infections. If you look at where we've been, our goal has been 90%. The last couple of months, we've been above 95%. That is phenomenal. When you cross-compare us with other hospitals throughout the nation, we are way surpassing them. Most organizations have an 80% threshold that they're trying to reach, and we're sitting above 95% at this point. Operational improvements, we're very proud that we have a new navigation system that is coming into effect, as well as 2 audiovisual systems that will lend to better visualization for our physicians in the cranial, ENT, and neurosurgical arenas. Our CARES clinic, I've mentioned to you all before, is the only abuse clinic within the region that is funded through a Medcare's grant through the state of Texas. We are taking it off-site and giving it a better visibility, number one, so that patients and family members can locate it. But secondly, as we continue to grow, because we identify that that's a huge need within the community, we will have a new location that'll be opening soon, and we'll share that with you all in the coming months. From the foundation, you can see that the total contribution for October and November was just over $370,000. $273,000 of that was gifted back over to El Paso Children's Hospital. This is an idea of some of the various pieces of equipment. We need all of these in order for our physicians to continue to really move to ensuring that the highest level of care is provided. So we're very proud of the work that the foundation has done because it allows us to continue to grow our services. The major events, we recently closed out our numbers for Party for a Purpose. As you're aware, Party for a Purpose as well as the Gala are 2 of our largest events that help to fund El Paso Children's Hospital Foundation. We closed out with over $156,000 netted for Party for a Purpose. And we do have the Gala, so mark your calendars for April 17th. That will be at the El Paso Country Club. We're really excited about that. We are going in a slightly different direction. And one of the things that I've mentioned to individuals is that the amount of care that's provided at El Paso Children's Hospital is phenomenal in the number of children that now can stay here in El Paso to receive that level of care. So at the Gala, we're going to be showcasing some of the stories of the children who've received that level of care here at the hospital. The foundation grants, we had a total of $40,000 for the Child Life Program from the 1687 Foundation, and then grants that went directly to El Paso Children's Hospital, the St. Baldrick's for the oncology research, as well as the Blue Cross Blue Shield grant for our outpatient diabetes program. Those netted to about $99,400. So in total, we had for October and November $139,400 that grants came in for services that we provide. And just real briefly here, I want to call to your attention the hospital as it continues to evolve. We very much appreciate the engagement of the community, from various groups such as the UTEP volleyball players to Wells Fargo to the Great Khalid Foundation. We have so many individuals that really want to come into the hospital and continue to support the children. And I think that that is one of the best things about being at a dedicated pediatric hospital, is that there is such a different passion at this level. We want to make sure that we continue to thank our staff members and to reward and recognize them, so we continue to hold quarterly employee forums, as well as doing various events, whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving events, so that way we know that we appreciate what they've done. And lastly, in terms of our media reach, you can see that between October through December 24th, we had a media reach of 20 million individuals. That equated to about $270,000 in free media. Various stories that really helped us to reach those numbers were reflecting upon the first 2 years of being at the hospital. That's myself. I got to tell the story a little bit about where the hospital was, what direction we're going in, and that we were able to end first year for El Paso Children's in the positive. We also had a story go out with Dr. Dominguez regarding vaping. That's a hot topic, especially with teenagers throughout the community and nationwide. Very much appreciate Commissioner Stout, who did an editorial story over with the Times talking about the growth of the hospital and how we continue to evolve. And then, of course, we always appreciate our military partners. And so I want to make sure that we thank the 1st Armored Division Band for coming over and performing for the children's, as well as many of our military groups come over and they share gifts and their time with the patients. Lastly, on our marketing campaign, we're going to continue to share the stories of the impact that this hospital has had on the children of our community. We're getting ready to push out some more of those. And then for the Best of the City, through the City Magazine, we were listed as the silver winner, and so we're very proud of that. We're a very small hospital when you compare us with any of the other hospitals within the region. And so to be able to claim that silver winner award is something that the team takes very prideful. Do you have any questions for me?
Lots of good things going on, Cindy.
Thank you.
If there are no questions, may we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The El Paso Children's Quarterly Update has been accepted. We now move on to Agenda Item 11. Discuss and take appropriate action on the physician's employment agreement with Dr. David Chin-Sing Wang for neurosurgery services and call coverage services, and upon approval by the Board of Managers, the authorization for the President and CEO to negotiate and execute the agreement. Ms. Amy Dare, Assistant Chief Nursing Officer. Ms. Gabby Rodriguez, Business Development.
Hi, good afternoon. We are asking that Dr. Wang not be transitioned from a contract employee to a part-time neurosurgeon employed with UMC. This is to advance our service line in the neurosurgery area, specifically in the orthopedic area. That's his area of expertise. So he will come on as a part-time employee and transition into a full-time employee towards the latter part of the fiscal year.
Great. Any questions, comments? No? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved. Second?
Thank you.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The physician agreement with Dr. Wang is approved. We now move on to Agenda Item 12. Discuss and take appropriate action on the certificate of formation of UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated in order to meet the requirements for its application for tax exemption under 26 U.S. Code Section 501. Mr. Omar Villa, Chief Legal Officer.
Good afternoon. What's before you is an amended restated certificate of formation for UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated. In order for the nonprofit, what was known as a 501A entity of UMC to qualify under the Texas Tort Claims Act and have those liability protections, the organization must be registered as a 501c3 under the IRS code. The amended and restated certificate of formation includes a language that would allow it to be registered as a 501c3. What I'm asking for this afternoon is to approve and authorize the President and CEO of UMC to execute the amended and restated certificate of formation of UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated. Are there any questions regarding the changes to the documentation?
No, I think it's pretty clear cut.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda Item 12 is approved. We now move to Agenda Item 13. Discuss and take appropriate action to adopt a resolution for additional rate not to exceed 1% for the El Paso County Hospital District Local Provider Participation Fund. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer.
Good afternoon, everyone. The item that's being brought forward to you, keep in mind last year that with all the Medicaid supplemental program changes, we moved away from what was called previously the expense, the burden alleviation programs to the local provider participation fund. And this was there was action taken by the Board of Managers on July 9th, 2019, creating the El Paso County Hospital District Local Participation Fund. What this does is that through the hospital district, we assess a fee to the private hospitals in the region. We collect that fee, and then that fee is then used so that we can make their intergovernmental transfers for the various Medicaid supplemental programs. Back in October, we did assess about a 1.25% fee of their net patient revenue, which generated around $18 million, and this was used for 2 intergovernmental transfers. The first one was in November for the Universal Hospital Rate Increase Program, IGT, and then in January for the district programs. The item that is brought forward to you today is that we are now looking in the month of February. We will be making an IGT for the Medicaid Uncompensated Care Program. The resolution right now reads is that the fee will be up to 1%. We did get final calculations from Health and Human Services Commission on Friday. We ran through that, so the actual fee assessment will be 60 cents on every dollar, but the resolution is up to $1. And again, this is going to be used for the private hospitals intergovernmental transfer for the Uncompensated Care Program. This was required to be published in the El Paso Times for 5 days prior to today's meeting, and that was done. So with that, are there any questions regarding this resolution?
Move approval. Second.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 13 is approved. We now move to agenda item 14. Discuss and take appropriate action on the proposed Medicaid Supplemental Payment Program, Quality Incentive Payment Program. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Kevin Nolting, Nolting Consulting.
This item, this is going to be more of a revenue opportunity for our fiscal 21 period, but there's a lot of steps, approvals that need to get done here in the next couple of months and forwarded on to Health and Human Services Commission within the next 60 days. Some of the cliff notes, so what the action that we'll be asking the board is to authorize management to continue to move forward with the Medicaid nursing home program, and we will provide updates at the next January Finance Committee meeting, and then as well as next month's February Board of Managers meeting. In short, what this is a public partnership between nursing home facilities and a public hospital such as like us. There will be additional Medicaid supplemental program dollars available to us. It'll depend upon in terms of how many nursing home partners we do find. But one of the items as well that it would help with the throughput with our patients is that if there are any particularly unfunded patients that no longer need in a general acute care setting, that we could then use skilled nursing facilities for the, for their next step in care. So with that, Kevin Nolting will be providing this brief presentation, and then we can talk about the rest of the program, and you can ask any questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the time, and I'll quickly go through the presentation. So just a quick overview of QIPP. It's a quality incentive payment program, and it provides supplemental payments to nursing facilities and their public partners. It's meant to encourage nursing facilities to improve their quality of care and innovation of services. It uses existing Medicaid and Medicare 5-star rating systems to measure success, and it provides the opportunity, as Michael said, to leverage nursing home beds for uninsured hospital patients who no longer require acute care services but would appropriately be cared for in a skilled nursing facility. In QIPP Year 3, which is the current QIPP year that we're participating in, there's a total of 1,182 nursing facilities in the state of Texas. There are 813 that are currently participating in the QIPP program. About 69 to 70% of those facilities are in the program. 311 are private and 502 are public. And the total number of public entities, such as UMC, that are participating are 77. So they're the facilities that are partnering with the 502 nursing homes in the state to draw down these additional federal dollars and to provide these additional quality incentives. Real quickly, the program's eligible for two classes of nursing facilities, those that are state government-owned and those that are private. Private nursing facilities can be in the program if they have Medicaid utilization of 65% or more. So the nursing facilities who have Medicaid utilization of less than 65% have to have a public partner to be able to participate in this program. The funding structure, there's a lot of information on this page. It basically boils down to there's 4 different components that the state of Texas and CMS process these payments to the eligible nursing homes. And the first component is because the hospital district has to put up their public funds as IGT, and you're familiar with the IGT process because of the 1115 waiver and DISH. Y'all have been a historical provider of IGTs in the state. The component 1 is the pot of money that returns the IGTs that the hospital puts up. So there's one small little requirement that it's a 1-page report that has to be submitted every month in order to trigger that IGT return. So there's very little, if no risk of the hospital not getting their public funds back as a process in this program. So that's very important for the executive team and the boards of the hospital districts to understand. The second component, the second, third, and fourth components are actually the quality metric components, which are achievable quality metrics that the state and the feds have negotiated with the industry to be able to show improvements as a requirement to receive these supplemental payments. And it's one of the very few quality-based Medicaid payments actually in the country, and one of the only ones in the state of Texas. So CMS and HHSC really support this program because you have to make quantifiable improvements to your services to be able to earn these monies. It's just not a payment for having your doors open, for lack of a better term. The total value of the QIPP program for this fiscal year is $650 million. And it's split between the different 4 components. Just suffice to say that the components 4 and 1 are only eligible for the public nursing facilities. So in order to incentivize public hospitals to partner with private nursing homes, that, let me see if I can find the, yes, this section right here, this money is all earmarked for the public nursing homes. So that gives the public nursing homes a much higher rate of return on their quality initiatives than the private facilities that are participating in the program. So the state used this to sweeten the pot, incentivize public hospitals to enter the program and help support the private hospitals in participating in the program. There has been there have been OIG reviews of the program, and they've made some very helpful suggestions, compliance suggestions to the participants. Needless to say, they all really revolve around involvement by the hospital district who owns the license of the nursing home in their operations, in their initiatives around their quality and their overall quality and operational improvements. And so these are things that the executive team at the hospital is aware of and understands are going to have to be part of the program to meet the essence of what CMS and the OIG expect of the participants. So the next steps are to reach out and find out what interested which homes in your community are interested in this program, and we've done that. We've contacted every nursing home who's currently not in the QIPP program and have made overtures to them, but knowing that the hospital district was going to perform their due diligence, tour the facilities, review their regulatory compliance history, look at their CMS star ratings, and verify their facility financial statements. And I want to let you know that we went and had the tours last week prior to the first scheduled meeting that we were going to attend, and staff from UMC went with us, and we were, I hope I can speak for them, we were really impressed with with the homes that we saw, I personally have probably been in 200 nursing homes around the state of Texas and done these types of tours. And these were probably in the top 10% of the ones that I've reviewed. And I personally was very impressed with their operations and their executive teams and their managements. But we will continue to look at their financial statements and verify to the scrutiny of the executive team that these are entities and businesses that they want to be involved in and partnered in. So this is a very important step to make sure that we're reaching out to nursing homes that you would be proud to have your name associated with. Then there has to be a change of ownership filed with HHSC. The deadline is next month, so we have a pretty short time frame to get all this done. We have to complete all the agreements and paperwork with HHSC in March, as Michael had mentioned earlier. Then we have to enroll in the QIPP program, and the IGTs for the upcoming year will be due in May and November of 2020. And if y'all have questions as I go through, I know this is a lot of information, please feel free to stop me. I should have mentioned that at the beginning of my presentation.
I've reached out to some of the other public hospitals, such as Parkland in Dallas and Universal Health in San Antonio. They've been in the QIPP program for a couple of years. I've asked them, in terms of, in terms of their value, and they do recommend, one, from a standpoint, it could be accretive to your bottom line, two, from a, patient throughput, but they also did caution from a standpoint of, going into the program, you may want maybe start small, maybe with a couple of nursing home partners, maybe not 5 or 6, because there does need to be some type of administrative oversight from UMC with the, with the nursing home partnerships. So with that, what we are asking, or what we ask, is just simply for the board to authorize management to continue to move forward with these steps. And like I mentioned, that I will provide an update at the January Finance Committee meeting, and then also an update next February. Roxanne and also Alfonso Ibarra, our Director of Case Management, did go with Kevin and did the tours of these nursing homes last week. So Roxanne, I don't know whether you may want to add in terms of what your observations were.
They were very well, the patients were very well cared for. The environment was very clean, and we did ask questions regarding the quality of care, any consumer complaints. So those, they do self-report when necessary, and they have very few complaints regarding from their patients themselves.
I don't know, I think so. Do we know who can you divulge, like, who,
list of
the homes that you visited?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can provide that. It's really up to the administrative staff but I'd be happy to give that information. And there are 9 facilities that are not currently in QIPP in El Paso County, and we visited 3 of them, and more than likely 2 of them will be viable candidates. So we'd be happy to give you that information.
Okay, that'd be great, just to do some due diligence on conflict and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
So that would be helpful. And is it our initial thought that we'll start with a couple, or are you thinking maybe that we'll go right into 4 or 5 right away?
I think right now, one, given the timing where we are, and then it'll probably just be best just to start with a couple. Now, that does not preclude that if there are any of the nursing home that want to be a partner for next year, we can bring them in under the next year's cycle. Okay. But right now, I think our intent is possibly no more than 3, but I think realistically 2.
Okay.
And just for your information, I believe last time I looked at it, Parkland had, I think, 18 homes in their portfolio, and Bexar County only really had 4 or 5. So they both have a little different approach to how they decided to participate and with how many nursing homes. So I think starting out with a few really good ones, we put a lot of indemnifications and insurance provisions in the contracts that you have with the managers to protect y'all from a financial position, but you will be the license holder of record. And so the one thing I tell institutions that are looking into this, the thing that we really work on trying to avoid is bad press. We don't want any situations where the nursing home is not doing what we expect them to do, and that those result in bad publicity. And that's why we do our due diligence, and we, I think, starting out small with some of the most quality homes in your county, and I verified that with several of my peers, got different opinions from people who also do business in El Paso with nursing facilities, that the two we're looking at really are probably the cream of the crop in terms of the facilities in your county. So I feel good about the ones that we've looked at and potentially will bring to y'all in the near future.
Good. Yeah, I think it's wise to start out slower rather than faster. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, gentlemen. Do we have a motion then?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to abstain just to be safe.
Pending
Pending
that list. Okay.
Abstain? Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 14 is approved to authorize management to continue to move forward. And we'll now move to agenda item number 15. Discuss and take appropriate action on the reappointment of Rick Meyer, PhD, to the Emergence Health Network Board of Trustees for the term beginning January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021. Ms. Lorena Navedo, Chief Administrative Officer.
Good afternoon. We're requesting your approval for the reappointment of Dr. Meyer. Dr. Meyer has a PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Memphis. He currently serves as professor and department chair at UTEP. He has worked in higher education for over 30 years and has held several administrative positions, including Associate Dean of the School of Education, as well as Director of the Counselor Education Doctoral Program. Dr. Meyer has worked in clinical settings such as acute care psychiatric hospitals, general hospitals, residential treatment facilities, college counseling centers, and private practice settings. His work has also involved crisis management and intervention. He has received national and international recognition for his scholarship in crisis intervention. He has published numerous articles and books and has made several national and international presentations on all of these topics. For these reasons, we request your approval to reappoint him.
Understanding is that he's been a really good board member on that board. Any questions or comments?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The reappointment of Dr. Meyer is approved. We now move to agenda item 16, discuss and take appropriate action on the appointment of Ms. Cindy Stout to the Emergence Health Network Board of Trustees for the term beginning January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2021. Ms. Lorena Navedo.
This name may sound a little bit familiar to you, but as you know, Cindy Ann Stout is the President and Chief Executive Officer of El Paso Children's Hospital. Dr. Stout has more than 25 years of experience in healthcare environments, has been responsible for many innovations in the El Paso market. Dr. Stout received her undergraduate degree in nursing from the University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio, a Master of Science in Nursing from UTEP, and a Doctor of Nursing Practice with Executive Focus from Duke University. Prior to joining El Paso Children's Hospital, Dr. Stout served as Chief Nursing Officer here at UMC, and prior to that, she was the Chief Nursing Officer at Del Sol Medical Center for over 30 years. Dr. Stout has been involved in various civic and healthcare activities. She currently serves as a board member for the Children's Hospital Association of Texas, the El Paso Rio Grande Cancer Foundation, and the Nursing Advisory Boards for the Texas Tech Gail Grieve Hunt School of Nursing, UTEP, El Paso Community College, and Doña Ana Schools of Nursing. In addition, Dr. Stout serves as Chair of the American Cancer Society's Board of Directors, Chair of the American Cancer Society's Patient Services, and numerous other local organizations. For these reasons, we request your approval to have Cindy placed as one of our board representatives for EHN.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Thank you. The appointment of Ms. Cindy Stout to the EHN Board of Trustees is approved. We now move to Agenda Item 17, discuss and take appropriate action to adopt a resolution to authorize the President of UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated to negotiate and enter into contracts on behalf of UMC El Paso Healthcare Incorporated. Mr. Omar Villa, Chief Legal Officer.
Before you have a resolution, this is again for the 501A. This would authorize the president of the 501A and president and CEO of the 501A to execute contracts. Currently, it requires approval of the board to execute those contracts. Now, there's no limiting language in this particular resolution. I bring it before you to see if there's any discussion as to the limiting language. If you recall, under the bylaws and the contract for the CEO, the president CEO of the hospital of UMC, there is a $100,000 per annual limitation on contracts. I don't know if that's something you may want to consider for this particular agreement.
I think it would be wise. I don't know how.
What do you think, Jacob?
Well, I think it makes sense. I mean, right now, the 501A, as it begins to enter into some of these agreements, and it begins to operate as an entity, it allows us to go ahead and approve. I think when you look at currently I'm the president of the 501A as well as the president and CEO of the district. We intend to have someone else operate as the president of the 501A. Quite frankly, we're looking at Dr. Hendricks as a chief medical officer. And it allows them to operate, the basic things they need to as an organization. Anything beyond our limits are going to come to the board for prior approval.
Anything beyond the limits, but did you just say there are no limits stated?
Right now in the resolution, there are no limits stated. What I'm recommending is those limits that are
Okay.
We could, approve
are
the
placed
motion
on the,
with a $100,000 limitation.
Yeah, I would think that would be a smart thing.
for $100,000 on an annual basis.
So I make that motion.
I second. Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Okay, agenda item 17 is approved with the threshold of $100,000 annually. We now move on to agenda item 18, receive a presentation on maxillofacial surgery operations at University Medical Center of El Paso. Mr. John Law will introduce our presenters.
Good afternoon. We want to do something a little different this afternoon and share with the board and with those present some of the amazing surgeries that are being done at University Medical Center. And so we've invited two physicians who practice here to share some of their work. Both are from High Desert Oral and Facial Surgery, a local practice here in the community. And I want to introduce Hans Brockhoff, who these guys have tons of education, but his last stop was at the University of Michigan. And Dr. Vernon Burke, he graduated from a school that is purple and gold, and he won't stop talking about their recent football accomplishments, Louisiana State. So I want to introduce the two of them, and I think you'll be impressed by the type of work they do here.
Well, thank you very much for having us today. My name is Vernon Burke, and I am an oral maxillofacial surgeon here in the community. I originally from Idaho, and I was training at San Antonio where I was going to medical school, and traveled to El Paso to evaluate children who were flying to San Antonio to be treated at my residency. And it put El Paso on the map for me because it looks like Southeast Idaho, but I could stay in Texas. So my goal in coming to El Paso, myself and Dr. Pagao, who is unfortunately not here today, was to stop the outflow of patients leaving El Paso for things that the city was large enough to support surgeons who could provide. Since then, we've grown to a practice of 6 surgeons, 4 of which are fellowship trained in their area. We now have a craniofacial fellowship program, which is nationally accredited. And we train the chief resident from San Antonio for 4-month blocks at a time, and some of you may have seen them around. In our practice, Dr. Hans Brockhoff, as John Law was saying, graduated from the University of Michigan with his head neck oncology and microvascular surgery fellowship. Dr. Natasha Furschgott, University of Pittsburgh, with her cleft lip and palate fellowship, and Dr. David Yates with his craniofacial from LSU Shreveport. And not here today is also Dr. Smart, who graduated from LSU Shreveport with his head neck oncology and microvascular surgery fellowship. We participate in national and statewide boards, publish journal articles and textbook chapters, and are editors for textbooks. We participate in the local hospital administration as the department head at Children's Hospital for oral maxillofacial surgery and as craniofacial directors. We also established a cleft and craniofacial clinic at the FEMOP Hospital in Juarez about 2 years ago. So I'm just going to show a couple of cases that are just before and after, and then I'll introduce Dr. Brockhoff to go through a detailed case about how we would like to expand the services at UMC in order to achieve the primary goal of the practice, and that is to allow patients to receive the standard of care in head and neck surgery here in El Paso, and to stop the outflow of patients who have head and neck oncologic needs. So this first case is a lady who has a failing dentition. So this is kind of the bread and butter, or the basics of what we do is treat people with diseases of the mouth. And eating is an important thing, and teeth are not important until you don't have any. So she's kind of at the end of where she can be restored. And so what she received was dental implants with extraction of all her remaining teeth, reduction of bone, and then dentures, or a fixed prosthesis that does not come out. And this was done in a day. She walked in with her natural set of teeth, or what was left of them, and then this is what she left with. This is a young lady who was seen for orthognathic surgery. She is very lovely, but her teeth do not meet. And in order to achieve a functional occlusion, she has to push her jaw out, and which leads to some TMJ problems. She also has a slight bit of asymmetry here. Her nose is a little bit narrow, right? And her chin is small, which in a heavier person can lead to some sleep apnea. So this is the same girl post-operatively with her braces off. And you see that I widened her nose a little bit, smiles a little bit more aesthetic, and her facial shape is improved. And her teeth in the relaxed state are in occlusion. And there's no scars outside. So before and after. This is a young lady who unfortunately was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. She's later in her teen years. Of course, many of the cleft surgeries occur in the early childhood. Some extend into the adult realm, and this would be that sort of case, where she has a very short, as it's called, columella, and so her nose does not project, and this is immediately identifiable to other people around her. And this is about 6 weeks post-operative. with a very good repair. These are some before and afters for cleft lip and palate. Some very good results done by some of our cleft lip surgeons here. And then I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Brockoff. This is the beginning of a case. This case, we went back and forth a little bit about showing surgical pictures, but I think it's important to understand the really magnificent stuff that Dr. Brockoff and Dr. Smart are able to do, and to understand what we're proposing to do here at UMC.
Good evening. This is a little show and tell. So this is a model. Just pass it down. You're welcome to look at it, and you'll see the case here in a second. Thank you for your time and your attention. Just to give you an idea, so I'm a head, neck, and microvascular surgeon, and I'm sure that's kind of hard to understand, but in short, what I do is I cut tumors and cancer out of people's head and neck. I create a big hole, and then I find some other part of the body, and I use that to rebuild their face and or their neck or whatever structure is missing. So essentially, that's what's done. To get someone like me, the training-wise, it takes 15 years of education and training, and I share that with you because currently there are about 12 programs in the country that produce one person a year with my training. So if you want to have this type of surgery, probably the next closest place you'd have to go to would be either Houston or Dallas or Phoenix, and you're looking at a major academic institution. So one of the goals in alignment with what Dr. Burke was saying, why I came out here was to help develop and build a head and neck center of excellence where people with profoundly complicated head and neck issues can be treated comprehensively. And so Dr. Burke showed a few of the cases where we're dealing with the teeth and jaws, and this is some of the more expanded stuff. Essentially, what you're going to see is a patient who the best way to describe this is transplant surgery. So she has a large tumor of her face, and you're going to see that on the model. She's 22-year-old female, and she has some swelling of her right face, which is a little hard to appreciate on this soft tissue scan because the picture because the soft tissue's disguising it. How do I advance this? The button here. Oh, no, that's the button. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back. Here we go. So one of the things that's unique, what you're seeing here is you're seeing a CT scan that's been 3D reconstructed. So they get a CT scan, and then this is the byproduct of it. The red area represents, I get on a conference call with a biomedical engineer. And what I'm trying to achieve, this is a patient-specific surgery. So I'm trying to cut out this tumor, which has really overgrown and taken over probably the better half of the right side of her face. And I'm trying to find out specifically where I want to make the cuts so that I safely remove the tumor, but I don't take too much tissue so I don't leave them with a greater sense of morbidity. So this represents the area that I've selected as what I'd like to remove, and you can appreciate from this that it's a significant part of her face. Those little metal transparent areas represent these cutting guides. They provide these cutting guides for me, and then I can go into the operating room with this, and I can know exactly where I want to make my cut. And then I resected it with we're talking millimeters of precision, so it's pretty remarkable. This next picture represents on the right side, what you're seeing is the patient's leg. The area that's highlighted in green is how I'm going to basically cut or chop up her fibula. It's one of the smaller bones in the leg, and with that bone is a blood vessel. And then I use that to rebuild her upper jaw. And this is sort of the product of what you would get by taking one part of the body and reconnecting it to another part. There's some blood vessels that I'll show you that get sewn together in the head and neck, and it creates a blood supply, and the tissue is living. So it's a living piece of tissue. So it's really quite remarkable. And this is the cutting guides that I've designed that are on the leg. And so this is essentially how I'm going to shape or reconstruct the upper jaw. There's one more picture here. Now, the slots here, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'll try to point on them here. And there's these little pink slots or purple slots, and then these things here that sort of line up and correlate with these slots. One of the things that I'm achieving, I've already planned this, is that they're going to get some implants into their leg bone while it's attached to their leg. And these will line up perfectly with where the implants in her face need to be so that she can actually receive a prosthetic. Because there's kind of two parts to this surgery. The first part is you're trying to remove the tumor and trying to save her life. And the second part is you're trying to give her some semblance of normalcy. And to do that, you have to rebuild her face and give her teeth and all the things that go into a smile and give her the ability to chew and swallow and function and not have a big hole in her face. So this is essentially an entire jaw in one day. This is kind of the comprehensive plan. So as you can see, these are patient-specific titanium plates that go to rebuild the orbit, because that way her eyeball doesn't fall down into her mouth. And then these are specific plates with the fibula now reconstructing her upper jaw. And what you don't see pictured here is there's going to be blood vessels that go and trail down into her neck that I reconnect into her neck. So these next pictures are a little graphic. If you don't want to see them, my feelings won't be hurt. So this is how you access something like this. This is the tumor here, and then you can see that the cutting guides are already in place, so I'm planning where I want to resect her face. This next picture here demonstrates that the tumor has now been removed. This picture might be a little easier to see. What you're seeing here is her upper jaw is gone. This is a hole from her mouth all the way into her, that's the fat in and around the eyeball, and that's inside her nose. And here's the specimen. So you can see the eyeball would sit here. This is her nose. This is nearly her entire upper jaw, and this is the tumor, and here's the rest of the jaw. And as you can see, this perfectly correlates with the preoperative plan. And then here's the plate going in. Here's the next plate going in and rebuilding the orbit. And then I threw this image in here. This is a study that I would get that looks at the vasculature of the leg. And one of the important aspects of this is finding the blood vessels that you can use to reconnect everything. This is the cutting guide on the leg with where the dental implants go into the leg bone. And here's some soft tissue that I'm going to use to kind of plug the hole. So this is her leg. This is the whole portion of the fibula that's being shaped down at the leg, still connected to a blood supply. So it's living. Then I disconnect the blood supply, and we use, this is myself and my partner, Dr. Smart, who couldn't be here today. And here's an example of a microscope. This us doing microsurgery, and these are the blood vessels. You can see that even now it's hard to tell, but there are sutures that are probably smaller than a piece of hair that you can barely see with your naked eye that I use to connect these blood vessels. This here is called the carotid artery, and that's the jugular vein. So these are the major blood supply to the head and neck area. And then lastly, it's a little hard to tell, but this is the fibula now in reconstructing the jaw, and this is the plate in there, and now the blood vessels are going to be reconnected down here in the neck. And then this is her closed up. And I wanted to show you the postoperative images to show you how closely it mimics the preoperative plan. You can see that everything's been rebuilt. The flap is here in place. You can actually appreciate that the implants are in place, and she's going to get some teeth to reestablish her bite. So in summary, she has a new orbit, a new nose, a new maxilla, and new teeth. So she's almost looks completely normal. If you saw her when she's walking down the street, what you would see is a scar on her face, probably from here to here, that's already fading. I wanted to show you a couple more x-rays. This is just a very basic plain x-ray that we get in the office. And you can see the part of her jaw that's missing. You can tell there's some hardware up there. But what I wanted to point out was these implants were put on while they were on the leg, as I demonstrated. And you can see this here already recreates that natural shape of the upper jaw. And all that was done in a very specific fashion. I think that's it. And so kind of in summary, this really is very unique, and I would even just say world-class surgery. And I don't say that in a prideful way, but I say that in a way where part of the goal of coming to El Paso and working with the group that we have is we really wanted to set up a center of head and neck excellence here in the region, and it's been desperately needed. And so my partner and I are currently working to expand the patients that are coming to visit us. You'd be surprised, some of them drive upwards of 4 to 5 hours to come see us for our expertise. And many of these patients, truthfully, before we arrived, they either weren't treated if they didn't have a means to leave the city, or they were treated incorrectly. Or they were left with the option of living or traveling to another city and living there for several months to have this type of service. To give you a sense for this, one patient like this would require the services of radiation oncology, medical, not specifically her, but in general, radiation oncology, medical oncology, speech and language pathology, occupational therapy, physical therapy, intensive care, advanced imaging, at times even interventional radiology. So these types of cases are best built around a team in a multi, in sort of like a multi-dimensional fashion in order for them to not only get the highest level of surgical care, but also to get all the adjuvant care, because for many of these patients, this is a lifelong problem for them. And so, anyway, I really appreciate your time. I apologize for the graphic nature of the photos, but I didn't know how else to demonstrate and really convey to you the level of magnitude of some of the things that are going on here in the city that without actually showing it to you. And my hope is that you'll let me work with you guys and bring some of these services here to UMC. So thank you for your time.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yeah, I do too.
Do you use a local biomedical engineer?
No, unfortunately, there's only a few companies that exist that you partner with, and they're in various cities, but you call and have a video conference with them. Good question.
Because I think UTEP has a professor that does biomedical engineering.
Yeah, so that, there's a lot of opportunity to try to make some of these things local, so.
Doctor, how many patients are you talking about being impacted by what you guys are doing now in your group?
So with this specific case, or with all of the things
in general,
that I do?
I think the doctor, you had mentioned that before everyone was going out of town for this, and now that you guys are providing, some of these services with your 6 physicians.
Do you have better numbers for the group? I could speak what I do, but.
Yeah, so as far as in general, I think 450 operative cases at Children's a year. A total for the practice of about 1,200 in OR cases. We in the clinic, as far as patient visits since 2011, we're at about 65,000 patient visits. 100 of the jaw-moving orthognathic type of surgeries. Our fellow did 350 operative cases last year.
538.
538 operative cases last year for cleft and craniofacial surgery. I think you're on track to do 70 or 80 cranial vaults. Yeah. Distraction cases, which is slowly moving the jaws when there's a huge discrepancy. That's maybe 20 to 25 of those between upper jaw and lower jaw, and then other parts of the face. Head and neck oncology, maybe we said 80 to 120 possible.
Yeah, and you have to realize a case like that is an all-day surgery with 2 surgeons. So the volume of that, like for example, when I trained at the University of Michigan in my fellowship year, you could expect 50 to 60 of that caliber of case, because that's an all-day case. So you imagine doing 1 or 2 a week, and so that would be the goal here. But with that, there are a tremendous amount of smaller cases. So you're talking several hundred head and neck cases, whether you're removing a malignant tumor that doesn't need a reconstruction, but they can. The head and neck service line can become. It can almost, we always say, it can take over programs in the sense that the volume of people needed to keep it going can be pretty substantial. So
that's a lot of people that are being impacted in the community So, I mean, I think that's really exciting to know the work that you guys are doing and your desire to create this center of excellence. What would be needed in your vision to have this center of excellence?
I'll let Vernon, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think a lot of this, myself and Jacob have been working on for a while now. This sort of thing, as Dr. Brockhoff and I kind of insinuated, it's difficult to do without an institutional support, right? Without the things that come with an institution, to have fellows, to have residents coming to train with you, to have a well-developed surgical program to assist you on their end, ICU attendings, PT, OT, collaborative things, to have a center of excellence, to have coordinators, all these things, and then to have facility and equipment. I mean, a microscope and Dopplers and CT scans that do very specific things. So this is what we are trying to do, is to integrate ourselves into UMC and hopefully build this up into a organization that we think can do it on their side, that can handle the load and is a big enough facility and has all those other specialists represented already. Dr. Brockhoff's very humble, but he's been doing cranial base surgery here for the past 3 years with Dr. Trier. And this is something that you can only get done maybe 20 places in the country. And I mean, there's some really fantastic things that have already occurred. And adding the microvascular, probably a lot more total joint replacement for the TMJ. There's some things that could really be expanded here. So I think that's, I think we've identified the way we are trying to do it, and just looking forward to hopefully moving on and really doing some fantastic stuff.
If I could add, when I was at Del Sol, we brought Vernon into the city and offered a service that really we weren't offering at Del Sol, or actually at HCA here locally. Typically, then as you expand the practice, they ask you to recruit other physicians to partner with them. He brought in a total of 5, right? The group is 6 total, at no cost to us, including people of high caliber like Dr. Brockhoff, Dr. Yates, who use 3D modeling and are able to do so many things. I mean, I've seen presentations at Children's of what he's done with pediatrics. When we brought him in, we were starting to open up our trauma level, increase our trauma level. We weren't doing children, we were strictly doing adults. And so you can sense their commitment to this field. I know that, with the dental school coming, and, we've met with Dr. Lang, we've met with Dr. Black, we're going to meet again with Dr. Black. This is something, when you think about the discussions we've had related to oncology service line, this is key to that. I will also tell you on a personal basis, I had an employee that, was complaining of loose teeth. Dentist said, well, it's probably a gum infection. And my trauma director at the time said, let's go over and talk to Dr. Burke. And he had a tumor. And they admitted him that day, and he went through the radiation therapy, he went through all the steps for quite a while, but they saved his life. And so when we talk about, the numbers are very important, because these are people that either will have to go out of town at great expense or don't go anywhere. They just simply do without, and it affects their lifespan, and it affects their quality of life. But when you look at the individual people and you get to meet them or see them, talk to the little girl that Dr. Yates worked on, in terms of the skull that wasn't growing, and he had to create that ability. I mean, and you see the before and after. These are individual stories that are amazing. And so when you look at, well, what does it take? It takes the relationship to develop this institutional approach, and we are working on that. I'm very committed to that. The microscope, I think of microscopes, and it was, lab at middle school, and you sort of look through there. MaxoCorp is about $350,000, and we've already got one. I don't know if it's arrived yet, but it's on the way that we've ordered. But when you look at the before and after and the impact, and especially the neglect that happens with oncology patients, this is critical. When you look at the other things they do that don't involve cancer, these people are amazing. And so we're real proud of our association with them. We want to continue to build on it. I want to thank Dr. Burke and his whole team. They are truly committed to El Paso. They could have gone anywhere else, a Phoenix or somewhere else. And, they picked our place. They provide a lot of care here and in Juarez on a volunteer basis. So we're really proud of their association.
And if you measure our historical success and our future based on passion, I think Dr. Burke is the model of great passion for this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other than he went to LSU. I mean, that's
Go Tigers.
But what we want to do is on a regular basis, feature some of the things we do for the board so they get a sense of what's really going on out there, what are the things that happen behind the curtain, and the wonderful things that happen here at this campus. Children's is no different. We are really on the cusp of enhancing the things we do that will continue to build us as a great medical center for our community.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah, thanks for your time.
service.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Jennifer, do we need a motion to?
No, sir. We
That's-
just need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I think with no further business, we are ready to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
Thank
Right,
you. The
we-
Board of Managers meeting is officially adjourned. The time is 4:18 PM.